Yeah, so I suppose I was, hopefully the sound is okay with the loose there, but I was walking outside the convention centre yesterday, and I basically saw you guys. I bumped into one of your colleagues there, and you're pro-life campaigners, is that fair to say?
So we're an educational group educating on what abortion looks like around Dublin and other cities in Dublin, in Ireland.
What it looks like, so I suppose physically with the sign there, I suppose what it actually...
Yeah, so we're very unapologetic. We display graphic images of abortion victims. So the one behind me today is 8-week aborted embryo.
Yeah.
We don't make it, and we don't make an apology about that, because if people need to be informed about their sexual reproductive decisions and at what human cost they come.
Yeah. Okay, I understand. Because that would be probably one of the most common sort of criticisms of the pro-life campaigners, the graphicness of the images. Like, but I understand you leave out warning signs and so on.
Yeah, so not all pro-life campaigners agree with the use of graphic images. We do, because if you study the history of social reform, no injustice is stopped if it's kept hidden. And actually, if you look at the abolition of the slave trade, if you look at the civil rights movement, if you look at even kind of child labour or living conditions in Victorian Britain, it took brave men and women taking photos, often making use of image technology to show people what these injustices look like. And until they did, minds in society didn't change. So we're kind of, people find our strategy very unpopular, but it's very historically ratified.
Right. Okay. Yeah. The reason why I wanted to have a chat with you, and I just like to talk to people in general, especially about controversial topics. Like I might talk to a pro-choice person as well if I can find one that will talk to me. Is that?
Yeah, good luck.
Is that I just think, like, there's such a heavy energy around the topic. Naturally, it's heavy, it's kind of negative, it's hard to deal with. But I think the way a lot of people respond to that is by sort of just being quite tribalistic in their views, and just conversation goes out the window, and it's sort of like us versus them. And I just don't think it's effective, constructive, or pleasant, you know. So when I bumped into you guys, you seem like fairly normal human beings, and
Very kind.
And it kind of, because it's a very unpopular belief, I feel, as a young person, to be pro-life,
No, absolutely. I mean, increasingly in Ireland, pro-life students are being bullied or deplatformed. I heard of one story at ITT University where somebody was wearing a kind of pro-life jumper, and they were told to take it off. It might have been DIT, but the two are merging together anyway. So, yeah, I mean, it's a subject. Abortion affects many facets of public life and private life. It's a procedure that enters into a woman and ejects whatever she has inside of her, but it also impinges on a man's right to sleep with who he wants when he wants, and his culpability in that. It affects healthcare. It impinges on law, and then when people talk about it in the public square, it impinges on kind of expressive rights, and are we allowed to display images of abortion victims or not? So yeah, I mean, it's a highly inflammatory discussion, and one of the reasons for that is because somebody knows somebody in their life or group or network who's had an abortion, and therefore to hold an opinion on abortion potentially contrary to that person's action may be seen as betrayal. And so yeah, there's a huge amount of tribalism, and we need to be able to have mature discussions about this. And the question that we are seeking to raise with our banners is it a human being? And if it's a human being, do they deserve equal rights?
What do you think? I suppose the narrative, like the pro-choice narrative, is the slogan is women's right to choose, right? So it's about bodily autonomy. It's about that's basically what it's about. That's basically the argument they put forward. It's that it's women's bodies, women have a right to choose, and anything that goes against that is sort of an archaic, controlling force that we want to leave behind.
Yeah, well observed. So yeah, it's exactly that, which is choice is the greatest authority in this debate, and all your other, moral kind of faculties have to come underneath a woman's right to choose. So we talk to people the whole time on the street and they say, I'm not pro-abortion, I'm pro-choice. But by that they mean that in certain cases women should be allowed to have an abortion, or even if they are against abortion for personal reasons, they still defend another person's right to have one, right? And yes, one of the fundamental reasons that come underneath this right to choice is bodily autonomy, which is how can you tell me what I should do with my body? And that's why this week we're making this particular analogy between the equality that's symbolised by the LGBT plus flag and the equality that comes into question with an abortion. Because what you'll find people totally in denial about is, unlike a person's right to choose to do what they want with their body, who they sleep with, whether they want it to be tattooed or pierced, or what job you work, or how your consumption of alcohol or any other substance, abortion actually impinges on two bodies, not one, which is one person's right to choose what they do with their body is effectively a way of saying that a larger, older, more mature person has a right to exercise their authority or the right of life or death over a smaller, much more vulnerable body, be it their child. So I mean, that's the clear distinction. So when people say my body, my choice, we say, how many bodies? Like, is it one or two? Because if it's two, then you're being intellectually dishonest to just kind of pretend that this is just the same debate.
I know, like I think like I struggle with I find it a difficult topic, and I don't know. I suppose I'm not certain on it. I think anybody with too much certainty on it, you would question, kind of, it's just so difficult and so nuanced and kind of.
But at the same time, there are certainties that people are in absolute denial about, and that's why we display our image, because, at 8 weeks, it's not just a clump of cells. Like, it has hands, feet, it has a rib cage. At 6 weeks, it has brain waves. At 3 weeks and 1 day, the heart starts beating. I mean, there are some established medical facts that can be employed in this discussion, and people are in absolute denial about that. Now, I understand that people may not want to come down hard one way or the other, but people should at least be able to fix their debate around solid points of reference. And people shouldn't be bullied or intimidated off those points simply because your opinion may hurt someone's feelings, and that's what we see the whole time. We just see, you challenge the notion as to whether abortion ends a human life, which it does scientifically, and then people get upset and say, can we stop talking? Like, get off my turf, and it's a nightmare. And you're never going to have you're never going to have a fruitful or helpful discussion if people are going to be that sensitive about it.
So there's different one of the reasons why it's complicated is it could be sort of a sort of 30-year-old career woman who wants to go get an abortion. It can be a 15-year-old girl who, had unprotected sex, wants to get an abortion. It can be a rape victim. It can be a victim of incest. With those outliers, with the more difficult circumstances, like, what's your stance?
Well, fundamentally, women approach abortion for any number of reasons, some much better than others, and some women are forced into awful, awful predicaments through situations that they don't control, and they see abortion as an opportunity to regain control or autonomy over a life that is spiraling out of control. I guess what we challenge in all of these cases, carefully and lovingly and gently, is, does anything about the complexity of the pregnancy change whether it's a human being that dies in the abortion procedure? and I mean that doesn't change.
What about fatal fetal or abnormality?
Yeah, I mean, you've got again, people die of all kinds of awful diseases and genetic abnormalities the whole time. If someone's outside the womb and they have fatal illness, we don't condone an attitude that says, well, let's fast forward that, let's euthanize them because they're going to die anyway. Indeed, outside the womb where there's life, we tend to support it as long as it can naturally support itself, and I think that's good medical ethics. And it's been the testimony of women who've carried children with stuff like anencephaly to birth, and may have only had a matter of minutes with that child, that for them to meet that child and say goodbye to that child is a far more... It's sad, but it's a better way. It's a better way of doing it, surely, than taking that child's life prematurely when they were still alive.
It's quite tough, though, isn't it? Like, for a woman to have a fetus bound to die inside her.
Absolutely, it's flipping tough, and it's something that men can't necessarily relate to because we don't get pregnant in that regard. So no one's saying it's not tough, but I guess what I am saying is, currently Irish women travel to the UK, they can have an abortion for a child with a severe fatal fetal abnormality, and not all fatal fetal abnormalities are fatal, I must add, that some people can live up to 10, 15, 30 years with a fatal fetal abnormality, and you'll need to do the research there. But also, it's this idea that that an abortion decomplicates a situation. And that's simply not true. Abortion brings all of its own complications with it. The emotional and moral, implications of taking a human life. We know from psychological reports that abortion decreases the mental health of women. We know that abortion is not just a turning back of the clock, of a turning to a pregnancy-less state. It's not. Because you've gone through a procedure where a healthy mother and a healthy, presumably, or sometimes not a healthy child, is aborted, and then they then try to return back to normal life as if everything's normal. And women are carrying the scars from abortion, years later. And often you find women they experience immediate relief from abortion, but down the line, there's deep regret and deep concern. Not everyone admits that, but yeah.
I was just doing a bit of research. I mean, I suppose I'm coming at this for the most part from the perspective of a normal young person. The level of knowledge on it as a normal young person would know, which is probably fairly well informed-ish, considering it's such a huge issue. I was looking up some stuff online. I was doing some research online last night, and the idea that abortions have been happening for literally thousands of years, right? So I think one of the arguments of the pro-life thing is that when abortion rights are passed, that you create this society that opens up abortion as an option, and so I suppose encourages abortion.
That's true. With regard to the UK, especially.
When I found out how long abortions have been taking place, it doesn't seem... Well, it certainly seems as though it's been a part of every society. And when you have young girls, or girls in general, ordering abortion pills online and, basically carrying out abortions in an unsafe manner without medical supervision, it seems like a... I don't know. It just seems like, well, it's, one of the arguments I think was, if it's happening anyway, regulate it.
I mean, it depends. There's lots of things that have been happening for thousands of years that are not necessarily good for society. Mm-hmm. I mean, by extension, should we legalise, slavery. That's still happening in Ireland. It's still happening in the UK. It's still happening around the world. Just because it's illegal in our constitutions doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Should we bring it in to facilitate? Surely if you have regulations on slavery, you might have an opportunity to kind of regulate it better and improve the quality of
their conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can take more extreme examples like rape or burglary. Like both those things happen anyway in society. They're going to continue to happen whether you punish them or not. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you should, bring them in or legalize them. The plumb line for whether we should legalize something shouldn't be whether it's going to happen anyway, but whether it's good for society, whether it's right, whether it benefits individuals involved. And I think you're really, really pushed to make a strong case and a deep case to suggest that abortion benefits families, benefits women, benefits preborn children. And when people talk about a safe abortion, and remember, a safe abortion always ends the life of an innocent human being. So, I mean, even the very notion of calling it safe is called into question.
Two questions. What's your stance on the morning after pill, and also should contraception be a part of the conversation? And what's your view on contraception?
So 3 questions. Let's just start with a kind of bit of context here, which is, scientifically speaking, a new human being does not come into being until sperm and egg have combined, and the genetics of both those haploid cells becomes a diploid number, right? Okay. So contraception doesn't kill human beings, right? Yeah. And I'm talking stuff according to the barrier method, or by preventing ovulation, etc. If sperm and egg are not combining, then you're not killing a human being, a genetic human being. So that's the first distinction you have to make. And the issue with certain late contraceptives as they're called, is they have a dual property. So they not only prevent ovulation or prevent the movement of egg down the fallopian tube, but they can have an abortifacient quality, which is they can also kill or create conditions in which life cannot survive for a newly fertilized egg.
We're talking about the morning after pill here, are we?
Yeah, so the morning after pill can do that. And so, again, you just have to call into question any medical technology which purpose is actually to end human life.
So basically you are against the morning after pill?
Well, I'm calling into question whether it's okay to end human life. And if the morning after pill does that, which it can do on certain circumstances, then yeah, I need to be consistent. It's still a human being back then as it is later on in its development. And So yeah, I would very much call that into question.
Maybe my biology is failing me here, but it does end a human life to your standard, doesn't it? The morning after pill.
It does, yes.
Yeah. So
it can do. So as I've just explained, lots of these contraceptives can have dual purposes. Sometimes they can prevent the egg and the cell from meeting together. On other attempts, they can prevent it from implanting, or can kill it outright. So yeah, I mean, anything that kills a human life, I don't think we should be comfortable with. Especially if that human life. Yeah, I mean, there's a fundamental dignity lacking there. If we're ascribing that just because a life is particularly young or particularly undeveloped, it's somehow less important.
I suppose I think we're wrapping up, but yeah, I think there'd be a lot of pro-life people who would be okay with the morning after pill and okay with fetal abnormalities, So it's interesting.
They need to be discussed. Like, you need to open up a discourse with them about it. Yeah. Because I mean, how does that work? To be pro-life, if a person is claimed to be pro-life, means that you need to support life wherever it is. It's not society's place to take it away. It's only society's place to nurture it. Yeah. And if abortion prematurely ends a human life, which it always does, then then those people need to be gently and lovingly persuaded to be consistent in their views.
Yeah, so the signs, right? I was looking at I actually noticed signs. Jesus Christ, I'm stiff. I noticed the signs there yesterday. So pro-equality equals pro-abortion. What I think that means is, well, it's obviously to do with homosexuality here as well. So it means that if we give the respect to gay people, that they're equal, then why don't we treat the unborn fetus with equality? Is that what it means?
Well, Rob, you're probably the first Dubliner we've met who's actually understood the signs first time. Right. Most people laugh in our face or scoff or laugh it off and say that makes absolutely no sense. Okay. But yeah, that's exactly the question we're raising. So in May 2015, Ireland legalised, pro-gay marriage. It was seen as, a wonderful step in equality, giving all people the rights to do what they want with their bodies. And there's a huge assumption amongst the LGBT community that we've confirmed this week that to be pro a person's right to do what they want with their bodies, it must also, by extension, mean you're pro a woman's right to abort her child, because that's doing what she likes with her bodies. But we're showing people what abortion looks like, that abortion ends the life of a human being, and therefore, how can it can't really be said to be equal in the same in the same sentence as marriage equality. So we're raising the question. We've had great debates. We've had some really good discussions with the LGBT plus community this week about it. They've attempted to cover our signs. We defended their right to cover our signs, and we even defended their own expressive rights, and even got a drink with some of them in the George afterwards. So it's been good. But yeah, I think it's an awkward question that few people in the LGBT plus community are willing to really engage with.
It's quite heartening that you got a drink with them in the George.
What we wanted to show them that we weren't judging them.
And they were okay with that?
Well, I mean, they let us in. They poured us a pint, and I haven't got ill since. But yeah, I mean, they were great.
Are you pro marriage equality?
I've been wrestling hard with it this week. I can't disclose my political persuasion because we're not a political organisation, but I have been wrestling with it this week because I have to defend people's right to do what they want with their bodies, and my issue is I don't defend people's right to take vulnerable innocent human lives. So there is I mean, I've been musing it. No comment as of yet, but I have been musing the question.
You guys are called Abort 69, is that correct?
No. So we're ICBR, which is the Irish Centre of Bioethical Reform. Okay. There's a similar organisation in the UK called Abort 67, which I'm involved with. But yeah.
Sweet. All right, thanks so much, man.
Thanks a lot.
Really appreciate it. I think it went well.
Yeah, and I hope your thing this afternoon goes your audition. I saw some of your kind of acting roles on YouTube just now.
Oh, that's funny. I hope I don't get excommunicated from my peer group for talking to you.
No, I don't. Well, I think as you said, you're planning to talk to pro-choice people, and so my recommendation is make a balanced piece and see what people say. And
I'm trying to I think this will be a standalone piece, and then I'll have a standalone piece on pro-choice. But yeah, I don't know. It's just nice to chat, because it's just so much destructive conversation happening.
You're a lovely gent.
Oh, thanks, bro.
And
thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, happy editing.
Cheers, man. Thank you. Oh God, stiff. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.